I'm very excited that you guys are here and you're taking the time to be here to be intentional about your family. So, to get us started, I have a belief that you guys don't find a close, connected family, but that you make one. And so that's why my mom and I are working together and have founded the Connected Family to help parents of tweens and teens create a close, connected family at home. My mom will put a link in the chat. I'm going to share a little bit about ourselves because while I see a handful of you guys are familiar names, there are a couple of you that I don't know, and I really like us to really feel connected. And so if you don't know our story, I was probably about as disconnected from my mom when I was a kid to the point that I had truly zero desire to see her, to talk to her. And it got to the point of being in a pretty dark and scary place, which is one of those areas that my mom and I will dive into, but still have a hard time really thinking about because it was so painful. And my mom, she was a licensed and marriage and family therapist and a parent educator. So you might think that she would have had it all figured out and do a perfect job, but she did not. Sorry, mom. And so please know that there is no perfect science to the connection that you have with your family or creating that in your own house, even if you are the most knowledgeable of parents. So throughout that time, we learned so much about what it took to create real connection between family members. And so now we are doing what we can to help support families in finding their own version of connection. They actually wrote an article about us on CNN back after COVID was kind of wrapping up, just about connected families. And it was really fun to get to have that chance to share our story and bring some hope to other families with a similar background. So the Connected Family, we host webinars, we do public speaking, and we share what we think are helpful ideas and skills on our Instagram, which is Carrie and Palmer. We do parent coaching groups, and we are working on a course for divorcing and divorced parents of tweens and teens, but we'll share about that a little bit later on. And in case we need a little more to keep ourselves occupied and for me to be more stressed, I do live coaching with teenagers and young adults, as well as I'm completing my master's degree in marriage and family therapy at Northwestern University. And my mom is a private therapy practice which specializes in the experience of being a parent because she has learned a thing or two after three of her own three-step siblings and working with so many other families. Okay. Actually, two fun facts. One fun fact about me, it's not the most fun, but it's still pretty fun, is I put a noodle in my nose and out my mouth. I didn't make spaghetti today, so I won't be doing it. But if you do want a private picture, I will send it. It is that impressive. And my mom's fun fact is that she has become a professional road tripper. She spends like 8 months of the year on an RV traveling around the country. So it makes visiting home pretty fun when I get to go to the Tetons, Yosemite, the Redwoods. Those are all California, but it's a blast. All right, mom, take us away.
All right. So you don't find a close connected family, you make one, right? So Palmer and I have created this webinar for parents of tweens and teens because it takes conscious effort to create a family that you want to live in. It's so easy to talk about doing it and never really take time to actually do it. So that's what today is about. And so I'm curious, when did you first start your vision of what kind of family you longed for? Will you put that in your chat, in the chat, if you have a memory? Like for me, I was 5. I remember being a little girl standing in the hair salon and I could picture 100 little kids, 100 babies. That's how many I wanted to have. And when I played dolls and Barbies, that was when I was creating this vision of how I thought my family was going to turn out or what kind of family I would have. So we all have this dream, right? Or this fantasy. Palmer, you started when you were 17.
The answer when I first was like, I want a family. So it's going to happen.
Ah, interesting. Cool. So for those of you who, for all of us, how's it going? Is your family looking like you had expected, or does it look a little bit different than you had hoped? As for me, as my 3 boys were growing up, and then when I added 2 stepsons and 1 stepdaughter to the family, there were so many times when I either laughed or cried about how different my real life family was from the vision that I had for our family. Reality, at least in my life, has a way of turning our fantasies on their heads. So it makes sense though, because fantasies, like the fantasies that we have about how our families are going to be, they're created by a younger version of ourselves who don't have all the information about what life is going to throw our way. So can you please give me a thumbs up or type yes if you can relate to your fantasy and the reality of your family being either a little different or a lot different? Or is it working out swimmingly?
I wanted a mom who would let me play video games all the time and always making mac and cheese. And that was not the case, unfortunately. I
I
think
made
pretty
you a lot of I made a lot of nachos
a lot of nachos, a lot of sandwiches. There's no doubt about that.
cut in little strips with the crust off.
Yes.
All right. Yep. We got some yeses there. So when we think about the family that we really want, we have these longings for our family, right? We have dreams, and they're about how we want to feel as we show up in our family and what we want to do and how we want to be. So, what are some of the elements of a family that you would like to be a part of? Like, what's a family worth wanting to be a part of? So we're just going to pause for a little bit for those of you who are live, and welcome also to the ones of you who are watching this in a recording later. But for those of you who are live, can you just share some of the elements that you think of as a family that you'd like to be a part of? Like for me, some of mine would be probably first and foremost would be about the relationships, healthy, happy relationships. Fun. Yeah, Palmer wrote fun, and that I would say that is like my next one too. I really want it to feel like home base. Like when the kids walk home and when or walk in the house and when I walk in, it's we're this is our home base. I think about a family worth wanting is one where we can be tender with each other and we can laugh with each other and at each other, but like in a fun, playful way. One phrase that I really like for a family worth being a part of is where everyone feels seen, known, and cared for. And then one other I have would be being able to relax in each other's presence, like letting it be a place where
Mm.
we can relax together.
I like
Palmer,
that.
is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, the I think fun is such a big one. I think fun is just how most I think though kids connect and learn. And so I think that was always a place I was really excited about. I didn't always realize it. Peaceful, happy, supportive. Oh, I like those. Yeah, peaceful sounds nice. Peaceful is a way that you can learn, connect, and grow. I think when it's not peaceful, it's hard to really get to flourish and have that feeling of secure attachment and home base that I think is so essential. I love that. But yeah, I think fun is a big one for me. I think it's super important to talk about why to create a vision. I think that for the same reason for resolutions, most of them don't last all that long is because we just will throw things out there that are simple, pretty straightforward. Like I want to have connection, things like I would say, I want to have fun. But what does that really look like? Because from what I've seen and studied in grad school, my work with teens and their parents is that most families really spend so little time thinking and planning for their vision for their family. People will go to school to learn how to be equipped for a career and how to run a business, but then we expect ourselves to be able to read a book or watch some social media posts about parenting and then take on the challenge of parenting. And I think it could probably be argued that while it's important to get school and training for a career, that's definitely great. I think it's probably harder to run a family and make sure that there's connection and security and attachment between everybody. So we don't have time to talk today about everything that goes into being a parent because there is a whole long list of that, and there's probably still things that we would even miss. But we're going to talk about creating a connected family. And instead of just waiting for it to happen, I'll let you know a secret. If you just wait for it to happen, it won't. The same way that you cannot win a game if you never play. You have to be intentional. You have to take action towards it. So let me ask you this. You can chat it into the chat. You can just think it to yourself. What is your biggest fear if nothing changes about how your family is now? So I'm not saying that everyone's still going to maybe do their laundry or not do their laundry, pick their nose and flick their boogers. I would have never done that as a kid. But as
No.
far as the principles and the core values and how people behave and act and how motivated they are, how disciplined they are, if nothing changed, what would stuff look like 5, 10 years from now? Would you be happy about how close you are? Would you be happy about how you speak to one another? A lot of things are important to consider. And so there's two things that are clear from what I've learned from my school, my work, when trying to find success as a family or a group. It's that first you have to have a clear vision and actively be strengthening your skills that are pursuing that vision. Because, right, if I want to go bench 315 and I don't consistently show up to the gym and I don't consistently do workouts and stretch, I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to get to that point. One day that might be nice. We're sitting around 275, but 315 is still a ways to go. The second, that you need good leadership. A great idea with bad leadership will rarely succeed. And someone that we think we probably all know is Benjamin Franklin. He said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And I think that's the idea of if you're a bystander, you don't take action. By you not taking action, that is you willingly engaging in not taking action. That's an action in itself. And so if you don't plan to fail, you are essentially saying, okay, I'm good to fail, which is nothing that we want when it comes to family. And so we all let some things happen without planning. And I can assure you that you are being intentional about the important stuff. If you do that and you pour into it, it will pay dividends that are worth 10 times what you put into it. All right, so 5 things to think about when you are doing some planning for your family vision. The first, and you guessed it, is to set realistic goals and expectations when thinking about your family. That's no rocket science, but you know your family members better than I could, better than my mom could, better than anybody else in the world around you. And yes, while we are visioning, we still have to operate in the real world. Like, for example, if you have a kid who has ADHD and a hunger for defiance, it might not be realistic to set a goal that everybody sits around the table and reads for 2 hours a night. I think if my wife offered me $100 a night, I still would not do that. I would lose my mind. The second is to share with your family what your values are and why they're important to you. So when your kid does something outside of your family values, let's say your family believes in trust, and then they lie. Instead of saying, you can't do that because I said so, you can give them your why and use it as a teaching moment to explain that trust isn't just this principle we have to have. It's important because it helps us to build meaningful relationships. We can have people that we can count on, rely on, and lean into. But if you don't ever give them the why, they're never going to really understand why it's so important. The third is to invite your kids to share their vision for your family and why it's important. And again, I think this kind of brings back to the idea of why connection is so important. And your kids will gain so much more if they're connected to this family vision. I don't know if you've been a part of a team project or a project for school or whatever it is, or work, but when you don't really feel bought in, most of us find it very easy to check out, sit back, and not really engage with that process. And so whether your kids can name it or not, they probably do have a dream and a vision about the kind of family that they want to be a part of. Of course, they might prefer that mom never complains, never nags, never tells them what to do, but they really deep down, I do think, have a vision that's greater than that. So I encourage you just to invite them and listen to figure out what that might be. Getting them involved in the conversation is so important, and it will help them feel more invested in the family vision that you guys are casting together. Also, it's just a great opportunity to get to learn about them. And something that we did, because I'm a big believer in having places that kind of prompt us to do the things we want to do, we have a little card game that you can try with your kids as conversation starters. You might have card games at home. My mom had them growing up on the table 24/7, but we made a couple little cards that are helpful for you that we'll talk about a little bit later on. The fourth is to dream big. And when I say dream big, I still mean realistic, but big. Because why not? We won't always grow to match the size of our dreams, right? I would love to maybe jump 12 feet high. Might not ever happen. But if I have my ceiling be lower, I can be sure that I will never reach my full potential. And it doesn't mean that things would necessarily be bad if you have a ceiling. But I'm such a big believer that it's so much more exciting to watch a family become all that they can be and not be limited because they set small goals for themselves, right? I think the idea of shoot for the moon, land among the stars is still true to this day, as cringy as it might be. And the fifth is to push through the challenging moments. This one is very important. And if there's anyone that I think is the most important, it might be this. And it goes back to the importance of leadership that I mentioned earlier, because you cannot let your kids deter your dedication and desire to have a vision for your family, because it is very easy to abandon hope when your kid is criticizing or disobeying and rolling their eyes about what your wishes are. And I'm not saying to hold out hope that your kid will do everything you say, and they won't, and that's probably a good thing. I would probably be a fan that rebellion, at least to a certain extent, is a good quality to have in your kid. But you have to remember that Disney, Apple, Google all started from a garage, and they all had their doubters. And kids may think that you're doing it wrong, but this is not your first rodeo with their discouragement. At one point, they did not want to eat their veggies. Did you let them just eat ice cream? No, you probably did not let them make that call at that age. Many kids would say that their best life is spending hours a day playing video games, getting Fortnite dubs, hanging out, eating hot Cheetos. but I can pretty much be positive. It's safe to say that they are not the holy grail for wisdom. So do not assume what they say is the end all be all. Your Disney version of a family might look different from your neighbors, but you are all here right now. You are showing up one day at a time. And if you do that for the rest of your kid's childhood, you will not believe what can come from it. It is the law of compounding interest. And so I think the same thing happens for our kids. Mom, did you ever feel discouraged when you were raising us?
No, never.
Did you think that we would be here now today, tolerating each other's company? Not even just tolerating, but enjoying.
Could not have imagined it. Truly could not have imagined it.
And not everyone's in that season of life where it would have been so challenging, but it's allowed us to see such a broad spectrum and be able to work through all the different stages for wherever people are at, because it can get lonely, it can get scary on that journey of raising teens.
So I'm going to do a little bit of teaching about having the courage to lead the change. And then we're going to spend some time actually just having time for you to sit and work on crafting your vision, because you've set aside this time to do that. And we don't want to just talk about it. We want you to actually leave this webinar having done work on your own family vision. But first, there are a few things I want to share about having the courage to lead the change, because at least my experience with a bunch of teenagers living in the house, at one point, all 5 of our boys were teenagers, technical teenagers between 13 and 19 at the same time. So I know how much courage it can take to lead a change. So first is that to think about with your vision is how relationships, there are a series of patterns about how we feel, how we think, and how we react to each other. So when we talk about creating a family that inspires you, if changes are in order, they're likely to involve changing patterns, habits, reactions. And they may sound like little things, but it's no small thing to change them, right? This isn't a simple academic exercise to create a vision for the family that inspires you. Like, it takes work all the way down to those little tiny habits that we have. But is it worth the effort to actually lead the change? Palmer, what do you think? Yeah.
I think when you say habits, I get fired up. I think habits are what define us. The good ones and the bad ones, those little pieces day after day is what builds our pyramid. And some pyramids are built on disconnection and some are built on connection. So that word always gets me hyped up. So yes, big resounding yes.
And it's so much of what therapy is about is changing patterns and habits. So changing patterns is correlated to how you manage conflict as a family. And that's not always a quick fix, right? So if your family is in hard times, I just want to say I feel you. And it makes this a harder task and a bigger task for you to think about your vision and make the changes to get there than if things are going smoothly. But it's still worth working towards as best you can. A few key phrases that can be relevant for any stage of your family as you're thinking about the patterns and changing them. One is accepting imperfection. So having a vision does not mean you are aiming for perfection, because imperfection, one of my favorite quotes is live imperfectly with great delight, because we are all human and by definition, we are all imperfect. Empathy. Having empathy for how hard it can be to change patterns, having empathy for where our families can feel stuck, for the struggles in a family, having empathy for ourselves as we're trying to lead the change and have our family look different, better. And then also to check your modeling. It's so easy to want something that's even beyond what we can model, but it's not really fair to ask other people to do something that we aren't modeling. So if that's accepting imperfection, if that's having empathy, if that's accepting reality of us as humans, if it's modeling kindness, whatever it is, we have to start with ourselves. And
That one's so important. I think I see so many families where they're like, we believe in patience, respect, and honesty, but then they'll let their humanness get the best of them, and then they'll yell and they'll get impatient and they'll get stern and they'll do things that in their kid's brain isn't matching what they're saying. And it can be such a hard thing for a kid's brain to really be able to connect with. I'm glad you said that.
yeah, thanks. If there's marital distress that's interfering with your family being all it could be, start with validating your kids' feelings. Consider, so because they notice it, they see that it's happening. So if we can validate our kids' experience, that's helpful. If that is getting in the way of creating the vision of the family that we want, consider couples therapy. Research shows that parental conflict is a huge factor in the overall well-being of kids. So work on it if the relationship is struggling, and if your partnership and family are generally in a decent place, then pause and feel some gratitude, because that is such a gift. Number 4, it's easy to wish our families were different in some general fantasy sort of way. So it can be helpful to start with the end in mind. Put words and concepts to what you want, to what your vision is for your family. Name where you want to get. Really create a vision and feel yourself. Feel your joy. Feel the open-heartedness that you would get to experience if your family was one that you loved being a part of. And then back it up with action steps to get there, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. We have to start right here with you, with me, with us. And one of the things that that I want to start with is, what is your part in what goes well and what doesn't go well in your family? Because I have found it so easy to like put it on other people. Like in my first marriage, to think if my husband just did it differently, then our family could be what it want. Or if my kids would just fill in the blank, then it could be what I want our family to be. But in this part of the vision, I'm just talking to you who's here live or watching the recording of it. And so let's start with the ones that are actually working on the change. What
Can I
is
pause real quick? I want to jump in. That one to me, that's right. I think a lot of parents have the fear of their kids having a victim mindset, or being like, oh, I can't do that. The world's too hard. There's too much pressure. And the way you just said that, in my mind, is like basically the same version of parents having that mindset of being like, if things were different, if this wasn't such a stressful season, if there wasn't so many concerts, if job wasn't challenging right now. And it doesn't mean that those aren't incredibly hard, incredibly heavy burdens to carry, but that is one of the most important mindsets I think kids have cultivated in them, is a sense of, no matter how hard things can be, I still have to be one that takes charge and does these things for myself to create the vision, the life for parents, the family that they want to have. I like that.
Yeah, because even if no one else gets on board with this family vision, just the power of one family member really making some effort to do things differently can make a change. So we're going to pause for just a couple minutes. If you were able to download and print out your worksheet, this question is on there. And if not, you can just jot down the first concept for this worksheet that we're going to be going through, is what is your part in what goes well and what doesn't. So we're just going to be quiet for 2 minutes and give you a chance to do a little reflection.
You guys ready to rock? Good to go, Mom?
Sure.
More time. Okay.
Okay. All right. Next, in having the courage to lead the change, is who in your family today is leading the show and how your family runs, and the tone and the feel of it. Because if you're not leading it, your kids will. If you don't decide how your family runs, your kids will decide for you. And trust me, they are too young to be qualified to make decisions about how this family should run, how habits and patterns and values and fun and all that stuff. So Palmer was an example when he was in his hard place. It was hard for the rest of us to be very happy or relaxed when he was surly or depressed. So I just want to name that part. Like sometimes we want to be in charge, but we can have a family member who has such a big presence that they're contagious. So with that or without that dynamic, it takes courage to take the lead in a family and to bring about change. But it's the parents who are the ones who are qualified to take the lead on this. So, what can you expect from older kids when you start talking about your family vision? They might be enthusiastic or they might be rolling their eyes on the outside. But I'll bet you 20 bucks that underneath whatever protest, that same teen could be found in their therapist's office or in their youth coach's office, confiding that they think it's cool that their parents care enough to work on creating a vision for the family. I hear
I put more than $20 on that. I'd put a lot of money. Maybe.
really, oh, that's
Oh
good
yeah.
to know. Because I hear so many teens, like when I am doing therapy with teens, they give their parents so much credit for what they do when they're out of their parents' earshot.
I
So their
know.
parents don't get to hear that.
No, parents, you'll share that and they'll be like, my kid has never said words like that. I'm like, it's not about them saying they believe it in their hearts. They know it to be true.
Yeah, so go with the assumption that your kids respect it, like it, want the idea, even if they don't have the maturity to tell you that. All right, Palmer,
Okay.
let's get to some, that's enough talk.
Yes.
Let's get to work. Let them get to work.
So we all obviously can do lots of talking. I think the years that I don't write down my resolutions, they never happen. The years I do write them down, tuck away my notes, not much happens. The years that's the most impactful for any kind of goals or anything is when I sit down, think about it, plan it out, and then put it somewhere that I can remember. I got a big giant whiteboard right here with all my goals for the year. And so it means that whether or not they happen every single day and I'm pursuing them every single day, it helps me consistently remind myself that this is what I'm working towards, whether that comes to stuff with career, with my wife, with my friendships, all those sorts of things. And so it's so important that we dive deep, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, that can make such a huge difference in the families that we create. So we're going to give you guys 5 to 7-ish minutes to work on the questions that we have in our little worksheet. If you had it downloaded from before, wonderful. If not, we can share them and you can then write them on a piece of paper. But I highly encourage you to write out at least a handful of thoughts for each one of those, and then you can go back and fill them in and transfer them to the worksheet. But my hope is for this is that you can then have it and you can put it up somewhere as your daily reminder, your weekly reminder that this is what the family looks like that you want to create. So we'll do 5 to 7 minutes. We'll be sitting around here. So if you need questions or want us to give any examples, we have plenty for any of these sections. Please just put them in the chat and we can share from that. You can also direct message us if you don't want to put it in the public chat. So let's do 5 or 6. I'll set a timer. I haven't answered these for a while, actually. How I manage conflicts. That's a really good one. That's a really good one. My wife Annabelle is told me not to talk. I'm sorry for speaking.
I know this is hard.
Can't sit still. Maybe about 3 more minutes. If you're getting texts and emails, unless they're urgent, hopefully they can wait just a couple more minutes of family vision planning, and then we'll keep moving. Oh, sorry. Someone asked about other. Other really is meant just to be a place where you can put in other components of your family that are important to you. These were the main 8 that we thought were super important, but of course there's others that might pop up. So that one is, there's nothing super specific, more just a place to put in thoughts that aren't a part of one of these 8. Okay, about 45 seconds. All right, that is it. I'm sure you guys all did a absolutely wonderful, phenomenal job. Mom, you can take us away to the next part.
All right, so that probably wasn't enough time to do the whole thing, but hopefully it got you started and you can continue it later. But one of the things, one of the things that I think is important when we're creating a vision is to think about it, right? So you've had a worksheet and you're thinking about what you want to add to your vision. And I think it's important to spend a little bit of time actually feeling yourself, imagining it being reality. So we're just going to do a little 2 or 3 minute visualization to deepen the experience of feeling what it would feel like to be in your family as you want it, or as you wish it was, as you envision it. So if you can, get in a relaxed state and just sit quietly, close your eyes, as long as you're not driving or something like that. And just take a couple minutes and take a deep breath and feel it and notice how your body feels. Just notice, don't judge it. You can notice which parts feel heavy, which parts feel relaxed, where there might be tension. And just accept it as how your body is right at this moment. And take an inhale. And as you exhale, just feel some of your energy going down from your head and into your heart and into your gut, getting out of your thoughts and into your heart and into your feelings. And then as you feel like a shift downward in your body, maybe feel a little heavier in the seat, feel a little space in your hips of just openness, bring your vision to mind. Picture your family being the way that you want, the way that you dream of it being. Imagine how you will feel in your mind and in your body when you're experiencing some of these shifts in your family life. And as you're in your vision, love your vision. Like pour love into that version of your family, this possibility for your family life. Feel how you would feel showing up as your best self in this family. And as you love this vision of your family, say yes to this dream or vision being your reality. Everybody's muted, so you can just say it out loud. Yes, I accept this as the reality for our family. Feel yourself being delighted at your family feeling this loving, this fun, whatever your vision is. And stay focused on how you will feel, what you will do, and how you will be in your family when your goal is fulfilled. And just hold these images in your mind and in your heart and come back to them as often as possible and say yes to accepting this as the reality for your family. And then if you're ready, wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. Take in a deep breath, sealing in this moment of like really feeling your reality being how the vision that you have for your family. Lock it in. And then we'll take a couple minutes if any of you would like to chat, share just where you are right now. How was that for you? And if you're watching the recording, you can jot down, how was it to just spend a few minutes? That only took a few minutes, but how was it to imagine your family being like the reality of it being what your vision is, what your dream is? How did you feel? How would you be? What would you do? Maybe there's an image that you can keep bringing back to mind.
I think it's so crazy how I can like really feel what I imagine or what I know it can feel like when it would be in that place or in that version of a family. And I think just that awareness of it can be so important. Remember, I think I read recently, there's a guy named Dr. Jed that talked about an awareness of those things and like really feeling and being just conscious of what you're doing and experiencing can reduce essentially the constraining behaviors that keep us from that place by 40% by just being aware of them, not doing anything else beyond that. And if you can know what that feeling feels like and then be like, oh, I'm feeling that, I'm not feeling that, can do 40%, which is so cool.
If you think about like sports coaches, there's so much science around
Yeah.
visualization. People have studied the science and they do that with high performance athletes. And it's the same science applies to us visioning how we will feel and be and do with our family. And so why
Yeah.
not?
No, 100%. They do it to go in to earn $100 million contracts. Something's got to be doing it right if they're going to be doing that every single time.
Yeah. And I would say that it's worth more than that to have a family that really feels loving
Yeah.
and your vision. All right, so I'm going to spend a couple minutes shifting modes from feeling and being to just some action items, a few things to think about as you're pondering how to bring to life this vision for your family. And I'll just spend a couple minutes on it. One is to block out an implementation timeline. If you have several changes that you would like to see, don't try to do it all at once. So we're hoping that as you leave this, you will go to your family and have some conversation about the vision and play the card game with that we have downloadable for you and start working on practicing some shifts, but don't try to do it all at once. So if there are several different things that you want to accomplish, block out a timeline for it and start with one thing at a time. I've done this with coaching with parents of high schoolers before, trying to get their kids ready to go to college. And I've asked, what skills do you want them to have? And so they listed like do laundry, cook a meal, manage their money, make a bed, clean the bathroom. And then they blocked it out. Like this was a kid who was a sophomore. And so it's like, okay, there are 5 more semesters. So for one semester, they're going to really focus on helping him learn how to do laundry. And then the next semester, they're going to really focus on giving him lots of chances to practice cleaning or managing his money. So I would say do that. If you have 4 or 5 things in particular, you'd block them out so that you can implement one at a time as a more effective, surefire way to get to where you want your family to be. Number 2 is we need reminders when we want to change things. Our brain is so drawn to what's familiar and to saving energy by doing what's familiar. So if you want to bring something new to life, give yourself reminders. So pull out sticky notes and write keywords and put them where you want to remember them. Or if you have a stone or any kind of visual reminder about what you're aspiring to. Something like this could sit on the windowsill in front of the kitchen sink, if that's such a thing, to remember, like when I'm cooking dinner, I want to cook it with love and I want to be loving towards my family while I cook. So give yourself reminders. Don't expect yourself to remember it just because you wrote it on that piece of paper.
I know we're going quick, but just to show that we don't just say it, we actually do it. These are 3 note cards I have. It doesn't really show up. Like, there we go. And they are 3 note cards about my relationship with my wife and just how I want to treat people. And one of them says, don't let the world drain you of the love for those that you love. And there's 2 other ones, but they're pretty personal that I won't go into. But I have them on my desk and I look at them every single day. I don't read them every single day, but I see them. And it's just such a helpful thing to have.
That's funny. We must be related because I have sticky notes all around too. Have I met you before?
Learned it from the best.
Another thing, number 3, is to visualize, is to pause and do that exercise we just did of your family being the way that you would love to see it. Just visualize it and keep saying yes. Yes, I accept that as our family's reality. I say yes to being able to show up the way I want to show up. Number 4 is have a family conversation and or individual conversations. Like, how cool would it be to sit down with each of your kids and ask them, either as a family or if it's not connected and close enough, or if that would be a little bit fraught, to have individual conversations with your teens and say, what's your vision for our family? And that's where we made those cards that you can go through. What's your vision for how we live our values, for how we have fun together? There are several categories in those cards, but let your kids weigh in on what their vision is for the family. And it can be tricky because they might be requesting changes of parents, of us, of you. So if you go in and have those conversations, go in with the place of, this is about me listening. This is about them feeling heard. It's not a time for debate or for all of us to agree. Number 5, give it a try. Lead the change. Have the courage to lead the change in the family. Try new things that you want more of. So if you want more family dinners, give it a try. If you want more games, more volunteering, more going for walks, suggest it. Commit to yourself. Oh, and commit to yourself that if you try something new, if you can rally your family to say, go for a hike or a walk, that you will not criticize anyone or bring up stressful topics during family time. You will save those kind of conversations for problem solving times, but you will give your family the opportunity to do new fun things in a relaxed, happy kind of way. Number 6, super important. If you take a risk and you try something new, celebrate your little wins. So I think this is a great place to have an accountability buddy, whether it's your partner, your spouse, a girlfriend, any other friend, to say, I'm working on this family vision thing for my family and I'm going to try new stuff. Will you help cheer me on when I do it? Or find someone else who's working on it so that you can support each other in having the courage to lead the change, to create the family that you really long for.
It's a good excuse to treat yourself. I can easily get carried away where I'll commit to myself that if I do 1 or 2 good things, I can get a bubble tea or a boba tea that day. And my wife and I have talked. It doesn't mean if I do the dishes, I get a boba tea. But if I do certain things that look a little bit more significant, important than that, I can treat myself. And so it's a good way to build in little ways to treat yourself.
And one of the things too, I have to name for give it a try, is when we had our 6 kids, a bunch of teenagers and like early teens, middle teens, my husband and I would suggest we're going to go do something fun. And invariably, at least 3 of them be like, no, that's dumb. And so my husband and I would go into our rooms and be like, okay, we're going to tell our kids about this fun thing we're going to do, and they're going to complain. So get ready for it. And we'd give each other a hug. Okay, we can tolerate their protest. And then we would go and announce the forced family fun that we were doing. And but it helped us a lot to be like, of course they're going to complain. That's just what they do. We're not going to let them hijack us and get us mad because they're being ungrateful, unappreciative, or pesky. We just kept moving forward with our family fun. And invariably, they ended up having fun when we did that. And then the last but not the least is number 7, and that is to have grace for yourself, because it's not easy to change a system. And the more people you have, the more complex dynamics they are. So it can take effort. So be patient with yourself, be gentle with yourself, celebrate your wins when you do have courage and when you do bring about change. All right, Palmer, can you wrap it up for us?
Yes, indeed. All right. So I know there was a bunch of things. Some came quick. Hopefully that they can stick with you. You'll get the recording to think through any other stuff to go back. And it'll also include all of the worksheets. So as we wrap up, I want to cover a couple of things. In the email we sent initially, there was the 2 downloads, the family planning vision sheet, as well as the game cards we discussed earlier, which has some pretty simple instructions on how to go about doing it. If you follow us on social media, you've heard me say this before, but asking your kids thought-provoking questions in a meaningful way from a card is so much easier than asking them at the dinner table point blank. Something about the disconnection between the parent's voice and it being on a paper is so helpful. And I cannot tell you how much that shaped my desire and my habit of having meaningful conversations with people around the dinner table or a campfire. It was amazing. So I really hope that you guys do that. And if you do, we'd love to hear how it goes. And those will also be in the follow-up email, I believe. And now I'm super excited about this part. We have a lot of really exciting things coming up. And no, there's nothing you can buy today. I'm so sorry. I know you are so excited to give us your credit card information. But my mom and I have a couple of things that we've been working super hard on that are going to be coming up on the next couple of months, maybe next year or so. We have a parent coaching group, and it is essentially the class we talked about at the beginning, where there's not a place to learn everything on how to be a parent. And it won't be coming, I think, the next month or two, but maybe soon after that as we get everything finalized with our other projects. But it's really meant to be a place for parents to come together, to be able to connect, to grow, and walk alongside other parents as they figure out how to do their best job of creating a close, connected family while honoring the fact that being a parent is very challenging. And it goes beyond just the parenting 101. It's not just the tips and tricks. It's very actionable times to set aside to go in and to do the work that I think really then transfers into a close family. The next is a divorce class. We were approached with an opportunity to create a program for the state that is going to be helping support families through divorce or those who are already divorced. And that is such a big part of our story. And so it felt like a really amazing way for us to get to share our passions, our desires, and our experience with others who are going through that. And that's why the parent coaching group isn't happening yet, because we are so excited about this. We wanted to delay the launch to make sure that we can do both perfectly, or as well as we can. The next is a parent teen workshop. This is going to be an in-person event that we're going to do in Denver for anyone that is local. And so we love getting to meet you guys face to face. The talks we've given, it always is so fun to get to talk to parents afterwards for half an hour, to meet kids and just show them that there are kids that once have struggled, but now are in another position where I still struggle, but I have much more of my crap together. And so it's a really cool place to get to connect with you guys and meet you face to face. And that's a place to bring your kids. So it's not just for parents, it's to bring your kids and have a night where we sit down, you engage with them, and I can promise you that you will leave with more connection with your kids than you had going into it. And the final one is the Two Sides to the Story virtual workshop that my mom and I host, which is not just for the Colorado locals, but it's for everybody around the world that we're doing virtually, where we share our story, we share some of those big principles. And so an hour and a half, 2 hour talk where we really dive in to our journey and everything that we learned that we want to share with parents that helped us transform our relationships and helps all the families that we work with transform theirs. Very last thing, we're going to include a 3-question form in our follow-up email, which if you could fill it out, it would be so appreciated and very helpful. It should take less than 5 minutes. It's just essentially for us to get some feedback, as well as for you to pick up the things or select the things that you want to stay in the loop about. There's a number of things, 4 of them, I believe. And so some of them might be relevant, some might not be, but we hope that everyone that can benefit from them and that can impact them is able to get the information that we hope to share. So it has been an absolute treat. I don't think there's anything else. Getting to chat with you guys, had you guys here. Those that watch later, I hope that we get to see you at the in-person event or just connect at another point. But these sort of things always make me so happy. It is just such a treat to get to see parents showing up, being intentional, and setting aside time to create the family that they want to have, because that is really where the difference comes from.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for showing up. Have courage to lead change and be in touch with us.
Yes, if you need any support, we'll be here. Be here to answer questions or anything like that. Okay, I'm done. Enjoy your guys' day and hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend.
Take care.